Oh, here we go. So as the title suggests, my charge is to make a case that diversity supplements ought to be saved. So last night is some trepidation. Now we're online to try to get a sense where we are now. There's a bunch of supplements that are pending to be funded. They haven't been funded, and also trying to make a sense, have they been released any type of NOAs or NOA, or if you will, NOFOs? None has been released. So had they been released, this talk could probably last 1 minute. But since they have not, we're gonna go for about an hour. So let me just read this very quickly. For obvious reasons, I chose to talk about diversity supplement because you'll find out a bit later that I'm standing here because of one of them. Otherwise, I don't know where I would be today. A diverse biomedical research workforce is essential for scientific innovation, translational relevance, and equitable health outcomes. Yet, the U.S. biomedical enterprise fails to retain early career investigators at predictable transition points, which unfortunately disproportionately affect minority scientists or underrepresented minority scientists. These are the points I'd like to cover. The workforce problem itself, what supplements are, and I give you an example of the Pride Summer Institute. I'll give you some sense what we can do in terms of how I invest for our ones, some difficulty the supplements have in terms of the implementation, and the policy urgency because we have to save the diverse supplement mechanism. So there are some difficulties that we encounter as scientists at very specific inflection points. Sometimes they have to do with someone who's leaving graduate training, cannot find a postdoctoral fellowship, and sometimes it's postdoctoral fellows that are not able to go to faculty position. These are very interesting times because at that point, there isn't really a commitment between your mentor and the mentees anymore. This presents a very important crossroad where folks are making a determination. Am I gonna be in academia? Am I gonna be doing something else? At that point, mentorship is crucial, and yet it's not being offered. So at that point, you would say the diversity supplements come into being because they make the transition much easier for some of those scholars. You may have seen those publications before that make the case why there are disparities in funding gap comparing African American, Latino, and white, if you will. These are real. We've been talking about those for the last 25 years. There's been some change, but we have a whole lot more work to do. Those inflection points, again, are very important. One of our 232 program is called Crossroad for this very important reason. These are important. These are folks that have invested in their career for a long time, and they get the PhD, and then they kind of stuck. So the reverse supplement is designed as a mechanism to address that, but unfortunately, not too many people are using them. You've seen this before. There are disparities at every single point of the ladder. And I can tell you where I was at NYU, for instance, we had 3,000 faculty, only 3 of them were tenured Black faculty. The same thing is also true for Miami, where I am now, University of Miami. And in terms of reaching the deanship, very few of us actually get that far. So at every point in this particular pipe, there are leakage. These are data we know for in America. That's the percentage of Black and Hispanics comprising the population. There's been, in fact, that's what I just spoke about earlier. There's been a little bit of improvement from 2008 down to 2017, but we haven't bridged the gap yet. Don't have any new data to show, so I can't say whether we're still improving or whether we are plateaued. And yet, what do we know? For workforce environments that are diverse, we tend to have much better outcome and much better performance. Improvement has been made. The gap has been widened, or I should say reduced in terms of care applications. But if you're thinking about the determining factor for success, which is the R1, the gap for African American has remained. For Hispanics, we're doing much better, but African American or Black, if you will, the gap remains. The supplement, in fact, is exactly about that. And yet, very few people apply for them. Few people know they exist, and that's part of the reason they want to stop them. So I hope by the time we're done today, you all go out and tell your friends, please, as much as possible, make a case that we can save this program. So what are some of those diversity supplements? Well, usually they are programs that are embedded in a particular R1 mechanism or funded systems where you provide support for a scientist of minoritized communities. That's what this is about. Now, this is very important because there's no time delay. The minute you get funded, you get started right away. And usually, these are considered to be a career bridge opportunity for minority scientists. At least for me, that was the case. They are underutilized. They are there, but very few people actually use them. I didn't know about that myself until my mentor, who was a Jewish fellow, said to me, such a thing did exist. I finished my program at City College, and I had no idea I could apply for a university. So in my mind, you have to get a job. So we have to do a bit more to make sure that people know those mechanisms do exist and then they're important. So quick point about this is the fact that one of the factors they're using to say they're not that important is there are no significant metrics by which you determine success. So a lot of people look at it as, well, I'm going to get 2 years for protected time. So you could come and spend some time in my lab. You have 2 or 3 of those. These are considered to be staffing moves, but not really investment in career opportunities for minority scientists, which is not good. And also, in terms of tracking them over time, there is no systematized approach to doing that. So they can be high return investment if, in fact, we consider those 3 points. If there's a significant infrastructure, that's phenomenal. You're going to get what you need out of that, and hopefully you could develop a manuscript for publication. You could use the pilot data for your one-on-one and the like. So this gives you protected time for 2 years to be able to become this independent scientist. But yet, in many labs, they are not used that way. They're brought in as if folks were RAs or clinical research scientists. Not good. This should give you protected time to become an independent scientist. This is, in a nutshell, what the career bridge concept is all about. So in other words, if you want to have a career bridge capital, it's going to have to be a combination of those factors. Protected effort, meaning you're a scientist, you're not there to collect data for somebody's R1, so to speak. Accountable mentorship, I'm talking about both the mentor and the mentee come together and determine how the process is going to unfold. It's got to be a funded environment. By that, I mean everything else you need for the R1 is in place. The scientist that comes in is there to learn how to become an independent scientist. And of course, you got to have the milestone clearly delineated. Not too many people do that. If you spend 2 years in a lab and you don't have publications, what were you doing? If you don't have pilot data after 2 years to lead to an R1, what were you doing? Well, is NIH going to call the PI to account? No. So that, again, another factor why they're saying that, do we really need those? If we structure them better, we can make a case they have to be utilized. Well, that's why I'm talking about this. I had one myself. That's my own origin story about how I started. I left City College some time ago in 1997, and a fellow that met me in a scientific meeting said to me, gee, you know what, you should come work in my lab, Dr. Kripke. I thought that was interesting, but it made my life very difficult, which was good for me. Most of the time, what do the PIs do? They write the application, they submit, you get funded. Not in my case. He brought me to San Diego, didn't have to pay for it, and in 1 week, I wrote the application, I got funded. Of course, he guided me, advised me, but I had to do it myself. I am so grateful I did, because this gave me a lot of opportunity to understand you gotta be able to be very resilient. Some people would have said, I've never written this before, I ain't gonna do it. I took on the challenge. In 1 week, my application was submitted and funded. I'm happy about this. So what did that give me? Protected time, accountable mentorship, as well as an opportunity to build what I call the sleep equity framework. Before that, we're not talking about sleep equity. We're talking about equity in other domains, but not sleep necessarily. So the field granted me this gift and I accepted. So besides that, what did it do for me? It showed me a way that I can actually do it, not just for myself, but for others, the opportunity that was given also. So here's what the initial investment did for me. So this was federal fund. Diversity Supplement is federal funds. I received that at San Diego, so it gave me protected time. I was able to get mentorship experience from a number of colleagues at UCA that are well known in the field. It provided that infrastructure which I had to have to be able to learn, to be able to know something about statistics, how to design project, how to run project, and the like. That's the career bridge. And eventually, 3 things happened as a result of that. The health equity model that I developed came out of that. And I also understood then how to lead a team. I had to learn how to do this. So if I was collecting data, processing data, I wouldn't have time to do this. So in other words, supplements are not supposed to be used for that purpose. They're supposed to be used to train you how to become a leader. And lastly, I was able to build a mentorship program, which I'll talk about soon, called the Pride Mentorship Model. The sleep equity framework is important because it allows now to understand that there are, when you see differences in sleep parameters. I give you an example. If you were to find two groups, whites and black, and bring them to the laboratory, you'll realize whites have sleep problem in the lab and black don't have sleep problem in the lab. You say to yourself, but why is that? How come? Well, if you go back to the community where they reside, you find out where blacks live, what do we have? Noise pollution, light pollution. The environment is not conducive to sleep. So you bring them to the lab, they sleep much better. You say, wait a second, they're not sleeping. Well, they do. So now we had to build different types of programs. Now we call them wearables. I built some of them in San Diego. We can now measure them in the home environment. When you do that, you find out, well, they really have much more sleep problem than whites. Well, these three giants, in fact, in some ways, give me the foundation to do the work that I do. If you can't do great things, I can do small things in a great way. All I had to do is say to myself, I'm going to build a training program. How? I had no idea. But after I said, what? Start where you are, use what you have and do what you can. That's it. Don't wait to get this huge U54 or huge pig and say, oh, I'm going to start training. No, wherever you are, start. And the one in the middle is for the mentors that are real mentors. I've encountered lots of people in my life that are the real mentors. They are tormentors, some of my friends call them. So what do we know from Dalai Lama? If you can't hurt people, if you can't help them, don't hurt them. Some mentors, in fact, do hurt their trainees. That's wrong. So this shows you a bit of what has happened on my own journey in terms of the initial investment at UCSD and what we have now in terms of a well-established training program for the last 25 years. I can tell you, since we left San Diego, we've been able to get funded for 13 different training programs. The idea now is to be able to do this at multiple levels in different disciplines and the like. The key factors in all those programs would be, one, a structured, congruent, multi-mentor program. You can't just have a training program which each mentor is assigned to multiple scholars. It just doesn't work that way. The idea of multiple mentors is excellent. It also added a concept we call peer mentorship. This is not something that we came up with. The scholars told us about that. Accountable mentorship. Mentors know what they have to do, and mentees also know what they have to do. Ultimately, should these two be in place, you should be able to get research independence. That is your first R1. These are the grants we've been able to get so far in terms of mentorship and career development. I think some of you may have seen this before. We'd like to think that our life is going to go this way, but that's not the reality. There are peaks and valleys and troughs. All your mentors say to you, you have to identify the gap. What do you do about that? Well, you have to bridge the gap. Lots of students come up with gaps and nothing happens. Got to bridge the gap. So I started at City College of New York, where I began to take courses in neuroscience, and somebody told me I should say that. Here's the story. I went there to become an engineer. And my mentor said to me, one of my advisors said, well, do something fun, take something fun. And I took a course in sleep and dreams. And as an engineering student, I'm thinking about, you can actually measure somebody's brain on paper. Then you have the polygraph. I started to realize maybe there's a different field to pursue. Don't laugh about this. If you know about Caribbean parents, if you're a boy, you become a doctor, you become a lawyer. If you're a girl, you become a nurse. So when I went back home and said, Mom, guess what? I'm going to be a neuroscientist. She thought I lost my mind. Neuroscientist? No, you got to be an engineer. Well, I have to tell you, although I switched my career, the initial experience I had as an engineer helped me to build 3 separate labs, and now we're doing one more in at the University of Miami. So no experiences are ever lost, ever lost. So my fellowship was done in San Diego. Then after that, I returned to Brooklyn, SUNY Downstate. That's where I learned everything about health equity. San Diego, 11% African-American, maybe less. You can't do that kind of work there. But Brooklyn, New York, yeah. Quick little story for you guys. I'm a black guy. I'm entering the barbershop. I'm going to collect data. I almost got thrown out of the barbershop. Why? Who are you? Somebody has to bring you in. I didn't know, but I just came from San Diego. I'm black. I should be. No, you have to be brought in. So the whole process of engaging the community is one that is systematized, has to be respected. Otherwise, you're not going to do real health disparities research. I went to NYU for about 10 years, and I have since left 5 years ago. I'm now at the University of Miami. That's the team. I came from San Diego, one person, N of one, and now we have a well-established team. I'm grateful for this. Oh, can I put this out? These two guys are community health workers. So this is a true partnership. All of the other guys are scientists, clinicians, but we can't do anything unless Gittel and Hewlett Williams tell us we can. That's a real partnership. And before we design any projects, they all at the table telling us what the real problems are. We think we know, but not really. Many times we have to tweak our design because they say that's not going to work. Picori forced us to think that way. Before it used to be CAB, Community Advisory Board. We don't do this anymore. We get the money, we go to the community, please advise us. We don't do that. They at the table from the very beginning. Oh, let me go back to mentorship. Okay, cool. This is where it is. You got to go there. You got to go there. Otherwise, you're not having the kind of impact you want to have. Okay, the PRIDE program. It provides protected time. The contents are circadian biology and sleep. We provide great mentorship experience, sustained mentorship. Over time, it's supposed to be for about 2 years, but I can tell you, all of our mentors maintain contact with their mentees 5, 10, 20 years. I can tell you, some of our mentees still come to me today for letters of support, letters of recommendation. Whatever they're doing, I'm involved. That's good. Peer mentorship is phenomenal. It's not something we came up with. The mentee said we needed to do that. So we developed a curriculum. For 1 week, we can actually train the peers to become mentors, and it's a phenomenal program. If you don't know about this, I'll be happy to share. And ultimately, they have to all become faculty at some institution. All right, the PRIDE program itself provides scholarship capability. It provides professional growth, mentorship, and network access, as well as turn them into leaders. We teach them how to navigate the environment at the medical school so that they can succeed. But ultimately, we teach them how to become good steward of their own health. You could get burned out pretty quickly. All of those things are very important. Is that the slide I'm allowed to have? Yes, I guess it's one of those. If you don't have an agent yet, you got to have one. You got to have one. I built two, one of them to help me write papers and grants. The other one is to do things like this. Here's what I did. I said to my agent, you know everything about me now because I've fed it everything I've done in my career. And I said, these are all of the ingredients of the PRIDE Summer Institute. Could you summarize that for me? And this is what I got. I'm sure you probably cannot really tell, but if you want to have a very successful program, this is for 25 years, I'm happy to give this to you. Model this as much as possible. Isn't AI beautiful? I couldn't do this myself. All right, this is the PRIDE Summer Institute. It's for a couple of years. Folks come in for 2 weeks during the summer, and they return the following year. Hopefully, they have the care application ready to be submitted or an hour application. The didactic science, sleep, circadian biology, behavioral medicine, lots of effort and mentorship, as well as grant writing. So we have a lot of people come to us who never win a grant before. 2 years later, they're submitting care application, grant application, and the like. So a whole year goes by, they come back, and they have what they call a max study section, during which time we teach them and coach them how to put together a competitive R1 application. I'll show you some data in a little bit. So by NIH metrics, we got to rate promotions, publication, and award. That's how we determine if the program is successful. And here's how we did. For the PRIDE Summer Institute, we trained about 132 scholars. And here's some important information. If you compare PRIDE program scholars versus the national programs, those guys were twice as likely to be funded compared to those who never had the PRIDE training program. We're also happy to say that we've trained 53 peer mentors who themselves are doing a phenomenal job mentoring others to get care application and R1 applications. So here I can maybe brag a little bit more. That's why I'm saying those programs have to be saved. So NIH investigated for 4 cycles about $5.7 million. That's what the PRIDE Summer Institute costs. For 11 cohorts, we have about 130 scholars, and those scholars generated 107 awards and which is about $131 million. Can we make a better case than this? 5.7 million, 131 million. So if you kill those programs, what are we doing to science? Now, 41 of them got promoted, and as a group, 2 years later, they published about 3,998 manuscripts. I think this is a very good program. If they cancel those programs, that's what we are losing, folks. What do we have here? So I'm going to skip over this. That's the trainee program. We're happy to share with you how it's done. And if you have some folks going to be trained, we'd be happy to see them too. Last time we did this was January, about 5 years ago. This term didn't come from us. The scholars call it the pride experience. Pride experience because all of them would say, programs like this changed their life. We had people here, we having all kinds of problems they thought were emotional problems, psychological problems. Some of them were losing their relationship, couldn't relate to the kids. It turns out the problem was personal. If you can't succeed after everything you have done, you begin to ask questions, self-doubt and all that stuff. The PRIDE program gives them a safe space where they can learn about some of those difficulties and challenges, and they receive support from the network. All of those guys, by the way, have become friends. They publish together, they submit grant application together. It's a phenomenal program. Maybe I'm bragging too much. All right, network is all about, that's why they become friends. The PRIDE program has multiple opportunities to network and become colleagues and friends. That's the training, the peer training program. This has been dated. We now have 53 scholars that have been trained. I'm going to brag some more. Dr. Bubu, some of you may know about him, came to NY as a postdoc, T32, and then became a fellow in the PRIDE Summer Institute. He's doing phenomenally well. In fact, some of the my initial thesis was on Alzheimer's, dementia, sleep, circadian biology. My first R1 didn't get funded, so I had to walk away. Guess what? He's doing this right now. Very happy about this. The next one is Aziz Seychas, again, another person that came as a T32 postdoc, a PRIDE scholar, and now he's doing phenomenally well. Well, I never had a, you see the first one? You know what this is? I'm still thinking about this. PKs, he's got one of those. I never had one of those. But if your mentee got one, you must have done something good. All right, so Bruce agrees with me, I'm a happy guy. So global translation, we took the model we call PRIDE Summer Institute. We now have implemented this in Ghana for the last 12 years. We also have a program that, led by Dr. Ogudegbe at NYU. We also have one in Jamaica right now, West Indies, started about 6 years ago. And just to show you what we're looking like, here we had about 64 people trained. That was about 6 years ago. West Indies, we trained about 43 master's level and graduate students. In Haiti, we started the program some time ago. Gang violence, the whole thing stopped. Too bad. Hopefully we'll go back someday. So some of the difficulties with the SRPs, the supplement program is that they're not being used properly. As I said before, folks come to the lab, not as scientists, but as RAs. This is just wrong. We have to do a much better job tracking them to make sure that they lead to success. The milestones have to be better tracked, and we also have to have better institutional support to help the scholars. After 2 years, if they don't get the R1, what happens to them? They're gone. There's got to be a program that allows them to maybe some sort of bridge funding to help them stay a little bit longer to get the care application or R1 application. I'm going to go through some of those. So here we are. This program is being stalled. I know people have applied. They still don't know if they're ever going to be funded. And they're not really seeing the program maybe anytime soon. Again, as of last night, it wasn't released. So to the degree you can actually make some phone calls, talk to your peers about this, tell them how important this is, maybe it'll come back alive. So there's a shift happening, and it has to be. In terms of AI, I gave you an example earlier, we can actually use AI to make the supplement even better. There are times you're looking for multiple mentors. Well, you could actually build your own agents to help you. So I'm not going to say a whole lot about it, but do know that there are ways to scaffold the program so that it works even better. Let's skip some of those. So we can reframe the program, we can structure it better. We can also have the program be institutionalized, and ultimately we have to have all the metrics organized and measured so that we can make the case to the NIH. Here are the data you're looking for, save the program. Conclusion here. Well, I think I'm an example of the SRP. As I said before, if I didn't have one, I'd probably be an engineer, which is good, but I'm not sure how much influential I would have been in the field. So I'm very happy about this. PRIDE is an excellent program. It's a model. Any one of us can replicate this. If you build a program, if you want to talk to you about it, I'd be very happy to. To the degree this is producing the kind of results we have here, a program like this ought to be saved. Now, here's what we're hearing. This program has gone on for 25 years, and there's a possibility PRIDE itself may be cut 2 years from now. That's what we're talking about. So those of you who know how to pray, pray. Those of you who can make a phone call to your friends, make a phone call. We can't let those programs die, folks. Kudos to all the faculty members here that have made the program a possibility, made it successful. And this is the team that makes my life much easier at the University of Miami. Thank you so much. Oh, do I say questions? I took a bit long, but forgive me.
Thank you. Thank you. I do want to ask, of course, we're talking about federal funding here. I'm actually, I receive funding from a partnership like industry funding that create these career development awards for initially was for improving diversity of the workforce, and we've seen a lot of success with these kind of multiple industry partnerships. Do you think that this is the most, I mean, government is the most sustainable way to increase representation in clinical research or sustain our research workforce? Or how can we think a little bit out of the box in terms of how sustainable this could be?
Great question. I think we have leveraged this as much as possible to get funding from Merck and Pfizer to add more lines. So unfortunately, 2 years ago, those dried up too, because they're all saying, well, if I'm funding program that's developing folks from minority communities, am I going to be in trouble? So all those programs just stop. So to the degree possible, yes, leverage them as much as possible if they want to provide the funding to do that. But there are clever ways to do that. For instance, when you're working on grant applications now in South Florida, we don't have to say we're studying Black and Latino. We're studying folks in South Florida. Who are those people? Black and Latino. So there are ways to begin to address this in a very clever way so that your application don't get flagged. So if pharma wants to sponsor your work, there are ways to do that. So again, we lose some funding only because people were just very nervous about that. But some of that funding is coming back. I can see actually for our programs, although we had a delay for 9 months, all of our training programs and our ones have come back. So.
Girardin, thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. And for those of you who don't know him or his work, he's very, very modest. I mean, he's really done a phenomenal job in bringing together several generations of people of minority extraction who are doing super well. And online, you didn't see it because you were back in the screen, Girardin. The family of the late Dr. Pat Griffith, who was a mentor to me as well, Melody Griffith, his daughter, was just acknowledging your lecture and appreciating you for what you do as well. And I know she wanted to be here in person, but couldn't eventually make it. But she's online supporting you and the kind of work that you're doing. So thank you for that. I did have a few questions for you, if I may. You've been very successful with this. But part of this is when you get these grants, usually they're not enough to really support what needs to be done. And sometimes you need institutional partners to do that. The other thing, of course, is that many times mentors in these networks are not paid either. How have you been able to get the right type of institutional support and also get all these esteemed people to take time that they don't have time for to be able to provide these mentorship of these wonderful people?
This is phenomenal questions. I can tell you that the list you saw earlier, these are all friends of mine. So if they're friends of yours and this is a worthy cause, they'll come in. I can give you an example. For instance, 2 years ago, we didn't have funding to support the Summer Institute. every single one of them said, oh, it's not about the money. We're going to do it anyway. And guess what? We did it. So there are lots of faculty out there that are conscientious faculty that understand if we're going to reduce health disparities and reach parity in healthcare, all of them have to step in and help out. And also, when we have two T32s, there was a gap for about 9 months. We couldn't pay this college. They didn't step forward and provided funds to actually do that. So that's what we mean by institutional support. Advocate, tell the dean, tell the chair how important the program is, and can the dean let 8 postdocs just go? This is tough. Think about the public image. Now, I have no problem telling those guys, man, that's not looking good. That's not looking good. So you got to advocate. I have no problem doing this. And I tell you, I work letters. I call people to get some of these scholars. That's behind the scenes stuff. We don't really talk about that, but it takes more than just come in and give a talk. The real work is behind the scene. But you're absolutely right.